The Timeline is a Blue Wire podcast. Welcome to the Timeline, a Phoenix Suns podcast. My name is Mike, here with Sam. Sam, preseason is over. We're recording immediately after the last Suns game. How you doing?
Preseason is over. I will just get it out of the way. I am sick currently, so I apologize if my voice doesn't always reflect it, but I am very excited about the Suns right now. The Phoenix Suns basketball, not only is it back, but like good Phoenix Suns basketball is back. It feels like after they just finished preseason 3-1. I can't like raise my voice too much at the moment, but we just witnessed a really surprising game in which they didn't clobber them because it was close, but the heavily shorthanded Suns, by way of Jared Butler, Jordan Goodwin, and Kaman Malawach, mainly as some sort of big three, some sort of big triumvirate, just defeated the Los Angeles Lakers, who had Luka Doncic, Austin Reeves, and DeAndre Ayton. That was kind of a magnificent performance, and for preseason is just as good as it gets. Like that was just awesome in so many ways.
It really was. Like, I mean, I think there's a lot of places we could start with. And like I said, preseason's over, so I do want to have a sort of an overarching discussion of the entirety of preseason, you know, including the games where the guys who are going to play a lot of minutes this season actually played. But, like, I really feel like we have to start with Kaman Malawach, right? Like, that really feels like where we have to start because he played 31 minutes tonight in this game. He was 8 for 10. Shooting. He had 17 points, 8 rebounds, 2 assists, 3 steals, 2 blocks, and 3 offensive rebounds total in the game. And he just showed a lot of why he was picked 10th overall. And I think it was the best showing and the most opportunity that he's had throughout the preseason. But this, because he started, right? There was no Nick Richards. Mark Williams still hasn't played a minute, so we don't know what he's going to look like. Because neither of those guys have played.
No Oso.
And no Oso Ighodaro, thank you. And he had really a ton of opportunity in this game. And weirdly kind of still played in a game where you would say there kind of was no real traditional point guard that played. Now we can talk about the 2 guards that played, like you mentioned. They really stole the show in the final preseason game. But we really got to see Kaman Malawach do some fun things in this game and thoroughly outplay DeAndre Ayton, who he started against.
He was awesome. I mean, the defense was there. He look, I'm just going to say it. He dominated the game with force, to use the Montyism, and you know, given the fact that he like went straight at DA several times and just outplayed him in terms of his effort, which maybe isn't that hard to do, but you know, I think it speaks to who Malawach is as a prospect, that he's 18 years old, and already there are just aspects of his game and his mentality that you don't take for granted. There's a certain effort that he's going to bring, and maybe even a professionalism that as a rookie he's going to bring game to game. But like, so like that's the bare minimum. I mean, it should be the bare minimum for all centers. Unfortunately, it isn't in the NBA, but like that's the bare minimum of Kaman Malawach's game. From there, you build off in so many interesting ways. He's able to take the ball and kind of go straight at a mismatch one-on-one with the ball in his hands and score off the dribble, as he did once or maybe twice, at least once.
Once off the dribble and once in the post. Had a hook shot.
Yeah, he did score in the post. I was talking about from a little bit further out. He did that once. He made a 3. He was 1 for 1 from 3. You know, I think it's interesting that, like, as I'm watching kind of how he reads the game, how he like decides when to flow into a dribble handoff and when to maybe just take a shot, it feels like as he gains confidence, he has a few built-in opportunities there to take threes if he wants them. I think it makes sense that they're starting off small with a modest amount, and he only took 1 3 in this game, but he made it. But yeah, his off the dribble game, his timing with the rim protection was awesome. As you mentioned, 3 steals, 2 blocks in 31 minutes. I wouldn't say he stole the show for me, just because like Jared Butler was insane in this game, and so I think the next thing we should talk about is just that last roster spot. Maybe it's not the most exciting like overall conversation about the Suns, but those guys were insane in this game. Yeah. But for the long-term future, Malawach was awesome.
And just in case we didn't make it clear, the reason we're starting out talking about Jared Butler, Jordan Goodwin, and Kaman Malawach, here are the list of the guys who did not play tonight for the Phoenix Suns. Royce O'Neal, Ryan Dunn, Dylan Brooks, Nick Richards, Oso Ighodaro, Mark Williams, Grayson Allen, Devin Booker, Jalen Green, and Colin Gillespie. So those are, that's their whole rotation. And it makes sense that they didn't play in this particular game for those who didn't pay attention to the last few games as well. 2 games in China. The last game they played in China was 2 days ago. So they really had no time for the guys who played minutes in that game to have opportunity to rest, recover, and probably, truthfully, sleep, because they had a long flight after playing those minutes in China. And this is their last preseason game. The first game of the season is a week from tomorrow. We're recording this Tuesday night.
Have you ever been on a 16-hour plane ride yourself?
The longest I think I've been was 13 hours. So no, not that long. That's very, very long. And look, truthfully, I don't fly the way they fly anyway. So I'm sure it was a lot more comfortable the way they did it. But it's still something brutal to come back and play in what is a game that doesn't matter. It'd be one thing, I think, if Jalen Green was playing. By the way, we have news with Jalen Green. He re-aggravated his hamstring in China, is going to be reevaluated in 10 days, or they'll have an update in 10 days. So likely won't be playing for the first few games, definitely not for the first game of the season. So it'd be one thing if he was healthy and Mark Williams was healthy, and now they have their first opportunity to play minutes with Devin Booker and Dylan Brooks in the final preseason game. Maybe they would have gotten out there and played 15-20 minutes together just to get their first on-court minutes together. But knowing that he wasn't going to play, and Mark Williams, we still don't really know when he's going to start playing. He thinks he's going to play game 1 of the season. We'll see. Knowing that they weren't going to get that opportunity, there really was no reason to get Devin Booker, Dylan Brooks, and the other guys out there to play. So in this game, Kaman Malawach got 31 minutes. He played awesome. He was fun. Just to shout him out again, just a little bit of what he did. Like you said, there was the lob catching. He had multiple lobs that he caught at the rim, the screening, the rolling. He had one drive on a pick and roll where he caught it at the 3-point line, took one dribble and 2 gigantic steps with a defender on him that he finished at the rim. He hit a 3, just like you said. He stopped multiple lob attempts by Luka Doncic at the rim. He had multiple steals. Those counted as steals. His long arms are just going to get steals every once in a while. Like guys who are that tall with that long of arms, steals just happen for you. Whether it be tipping lobs like that, those are not block shots, right? Those are technically steals if the Suns get the recovery on those. And he's going to get blocks. Like he just did a lot of things in this game that make you really excited to see what he could look like. And I mentioned it online. He's played other minutes in the previous 3 preseason games. Spot minutes here and there, just getting a little bit of time. He really clicked into second gear in the second quarter and have found ways to be effective. In every other game that he's played so far, he has not really looked ready to play minutes this season. In this game, and it's one game, but in this game, he looked like a player who could play backup center this season. And it won't always be pretty, just like it wasn't in this game, but for most of the time it was, truthfully. But he did look a lot more ready to play minutes this season and going forward. Whether or not that is something that can happen for the rest of the time, we'll see. But the more minutes he got, the more comfortable he got with the speed of the game, the size of the game, and what he could do on offense and defense.
Yeah, look, he's going to flash his ceiling sometimes, and when he does, it's going to look really, really good. But Kaman in year 1 is going to be a really high variance player. Inevitably, I saw a couple of the takes come out online as he was, having an awesome game tonight that, oh, this is why I don't know about the Mark Williams acquisition, yada, yada, yada. And it's like, okay, let's not flip back and forth on that every time, one of them has a good game or a bad game. I know for a fact that there are going to be a lot of games this season where Malawach, if he's even playing, because honestly, we need to talk about Oso. We need to talk about Nick Richards. Like, their center rotation right now is really surprisingly strong. But I know there are going to be plenty of games where Malawach just looks unplayable or just like poor, where he looks like a rookie this year. This was not one of those games. This was basically a best case scenario outing for an 18-year-old, and really exciting as we get behind him early in his career.
I want to really kind of talk about who's impressed us and maybe who we want to see a little bit more from in preseason. We have to give shout outs to Jared Butler and Jordan Goodwin, two guys who are on non-guaranteed contracts for the Phoenix Suns. Jared Butler finished this game with 35 points, 9 assists, 7 rebounds, 1 steal, 0 turnovers. Jordan Goodwin, 24 points. Jordan Goodwin, by the way, cut by the Lakers. Just played on the Lakers last year. They did not choose to keep him this season. He was plus 14 in this game, the best on the Suns by a pretty significant margin. Overall, the starters especially. 24 points for him, 6 assists, 4 rebounds, 1 steal. He did have 4 turnovers. He was 10 for 20 from the field. Took 20 shots. I don't know if he's ever done that in an NBA game before, but he took 20 shots in this game. You know, those two guys combined for almost 60 points for the Suns, who scored 113 total.
Butler took 26 shots. I mean, you would have thought it was Luka and Jalen Brunson out there. Honestly, the way those two guys played tonight, it was like something I've never seen. I was going back through, trying to search my brain for like former epic performances like that we've seen from Suns guards who are just like, when it's coming from unexpected places. I don't know, Tyler Ulis maybe scored 30 once. I don't think Mike James ever did something like this. Like, people were bringing up Mike James. Mike James never had 35, 7, 9, and 0 turnovers for the Suns. He did not do that. So the unfortunate thing for these guys, we're only keeping one of them.
Well,
and most likely.
Wanted to say, I believe they both have a guarantee date in like January on their contracts. So they could keep both of them for now. But they won't likely keep both of them for the whole season unless they make a trade. Like, they can always do a 2-for-1 trade and just have the spots. But, it's difficult to make the case that they need to keep both of them. It's just an interesting thing that they did in that they both do such different things.
They really are such different players. I mean,
because what's difficult about making the case for Jared Butler after this game is he's never going to have the opportunity to do what he just did in a real NBA game.
Well,
26 shots,
not 26 shots, but
unless everyone gets hurt.
I point out that Jalen Green is going to miss, maybe a couple weeks. We don't know. And if when little things like that happen, opportunities will open up for someone like Jared Butler. Now, you're absolutely right. Honestly, so a couple things. First of all, I want to say Jordan Goodwin definitely outplayed Jared Butler by a lot in the first 3 games, mostly those 2 games against Brooklyn. So he had the advantage coming into tonight, and then they both played really well. I would say Jordan Goodwin has probably maintained the advantage. Jordan Goodwin's also surprised me in the sense that I always knew that he could bring a certain baseline level of effort, but I think, as you alluded to, 10 for 20 for him, 3 for 7 from deep, but like, he was scoring off the dribble and a little bit in isolation tonight, and a little bit as a pick and roll ball handler in a way that I didn't really know he had in his game. So that was pretty surprising. Even so, he can't do what Jared Butler does. He doesn't have the falling over, get the contact, like, floater off the backboard move, or, he's not just like cleanly pulling up into these threes off the dribble in the same way that Jared Butler was able to. When he heat checks, he looked ridiculous. I do agree with you, though. I don't know if there's a spot for him on this team.
It's just like what Jordan Goodwin does. Especially, he shot 38% from 3 last year, Jordan Goodwin. If his 3-point shot is real, and remains to be seen, he was 3 for 7 tonight, but he took 7, and he was 3 for 7 in those 7, and a couple of them were pull-up threes. They weren't all catch and shoots. First of all, no one was setting up anyone for catch and shoot threes in this game outside of the occasional Jared Butler assist, who's honestly probably better at setting up guys at the rim. if Jordan Goodwin does shoot well from three, they don't have, outside of Ryan Dunn, they don't have a lot of guys who are going to chase around guards. I think it's probably best for Dylan Brooks to guard bigger because they don't have a lot of guys who can guard bigger as well, although we're going to have a Rasheer Fleming conversation later. Having another guy who can chase around guards and really try to put pressure on the guys who kill you off the dribble, smaller guys like Jordan Goodwin who can also hit threes, that's pretty valuable to have. Like you can just slot him in lineups with all of the guys who sat tonight and say, okay, I could see he could have a role in a lineup with these guys. And, with Jared Butler, like I said, maybe you're right. Maybe they just need another guy who can create a shot and shoot. And I think we're going to see, I think there's a reason to keep them for a while now, for a few months, and just make that decision. Because if it comes out that, they really just need more shot creation, maybe Colin Gillespie isn't getting it done in that way, or someone else isn't getting it done, then maybe it is something that they do. They keep Jared Butler. I would feel better. This was the first game where he had 9 assists, right? This was the first game where I feel like he could pass at all.
Yeah,
he wasn't passing before.
He's straight up a chucker. I don't, I wouldn't shy away from using that term for Jared Butler. It's not necessarily derogatory when I use it for him, because sometimes he'll have games like this. I do think, NBA nerds, analytic types, if you will, whatever you would call us, we do.
Is this derogatory?
Sure. Water boys, whatever EJ would call us. We do have a tendency to just underrate bucket getters. And I'm not going to go full ball don't stop on you right now. But, I will say, if it was so easy to get 30 points in any type of NBA game against any NBA competition, right, regardless, then everyone would fucking do it. But only so many people can do it, right? And so, I just don't want to devalue what Jared Butler is capable of doing when he's at his best, because the way that can steady an offense is crazy. And there are only so many guys in the league who can do it.
You're going to run out of coffee at some point, so you might as well order some now. Take out your phone, go to your computer, go to alchemyroaster.com. That's alchemyroaster.com and buy some coffee now. Alchemy Roast is a Metro Phoenix-based coffee roaster that focuses on the transformational process of coffee from seed to cup. They're about more than just coffee. They're about passion, dedication, and community. They're a small batch roastery committed to sourcing the finest beans and mastering the art of the roast. And they do it ethically. That's right, ethical beans. You can get 10% off your coffee order now by using the promo code TIMELINE at alchemyroaster.com. That's TIMELINE at alchemyroaster.com in the promo code section of your checkout. Get some great coffee, support a local Phoenix business that makes excellent coffee, and support us on the podcast by using that promo code. That's alchemyroaster.com, promo code TIMELINE for the best coffee you can get. Let's talk about preseason as a whole and what we've seen so far this preseason. The Suns played 2 games in China against the Brooklyn Nets, the woeful Brooklyn Nets, I think we could say, a team that's not going to be great in this coming season. They have Michael Porter Jr., they have Cam Thomas. I will say, watching Michael Porter Jr. and Cam Thomas, it's like, okay, these guys are going to kill some teams sometimes. They're just going to score a ton of points on teams and, steal some wins occasionally. The Suns
They still have Claxton.
Yeah, they still have Claxton, who...
They have a few NBA players.
Yeah, they definitely do. And then they have like a bevy of rookies. They have 5 rookies that are going to potentially get minutes in this coming season. And the Suns, when they played their guys, they looked better than the Brooklyn Nets. And when they played some of the end of the bench guys, there were times the Brooklyn Nets looked better. There were times that the Suns looked better. They won one, they lost one. Both games were close at the end. Not necessarily as close when the main guys were playing, outside of a one quarter where Cam Thomas was kind of killing everybody. And then, of course, they had the first game, which we've already talked about on the podcast as well. I think where I want to start this conversation, let's start with who has impressed you so far this season. If you had to pick one Suns player to start with here, who's impressed you so far in the preseason?
In preseason, just one guy?
Yeah, and we can go through all of them, of course. But
yeah, there's kind of a lot.
I agree.
Let's start with, let's start with Dylan Brooks. Is that a weird place to start?
Nope, I don't think that's weird at all.
I think Dylan Brooks, through preseason, let me pull up the stats just so I can kind of reference them.
As you pull it up, let me say this. I was not watching the China games live. Too early in the morning for me. So what I was doing is I was waking up, looking at the box score, checking what happened in the game just from a statistical perspective, and then I would make some coffee and watch the game, right, as I drink my coffee. And I saw one game where Dylan Brooks shot 18 shots, and I was like, oh, no. What happened in this game that Dylan Brooks shot 18 times? I expected to watch the game and be like, what is he doing? No, I didn't feel like that. There were just times where the Suns needed another guy to do something, and he was willing to do that occasionally. I found myself surprisingly less frustrated with his 18-shot performance than I anticipated myself being. But yes, see, you were looking up some stats. What did you have to say about that?
First of all, it's funny that you do that. I feel like I have more experience watching the games on replay than you at this point. And when it's impossible for me to, if I check Twitter, if I check the internet, I'm going to know what happened in a game. I'm not everything that happened, but I'm going to know the score. So it's impossible to avoid the score, but I try as hard as possible to avoid the box score before I watch, because I want some level of surprise. Still, I'm gonna know if they win or lose going into it, but I don't look at the box score. At least I try and avoid it as much as possible.
Interesting.
Dylan Brooks averaged 13.3 points through 3 games in preseason. Of course, that's only in 25 minutes. Shot 44% from the field, 33% from deep, 86% from the free throw line. 2 rebounds, 2 assists, 1 steal. He was Dylan Brooks, right? But I think it was nice to see. It's sort of I don't know of another way to put it other than you have this preconceived notion of what the Dylan Brooks experience is going to be. I think much of that in my head is still carried over from the Memphis years in particular. But that was a while ago now. That was 3 years ago that Dylan Brooks played for Memphis, and I think 2 years in Houston really did a lot to steady his offensive game. And now it's clear he's developed a really good relationship, actually, with Devin Booker already. They did the presser after one of the games in China together. Dylan Brooks talked about how he likes the Labubu's. That's how he said it.
He said they're cute. Yeah.
He said he's got full, maybe he didn't, I don't remember. He said he has a bunch of them. And Devin Booker laughed about it. But clearly those guys are friends, which is good to see, because, there was some talk about their previous meetings and, again, from when Dylan Brooks was in Memphis and whatever, and any of this stuff that just happens on the court. But obviously they're in a different frame of mind when they're competing on the court. And, now that they are teammates, it seems like they firmly have each other's backs. I did get a chuckle out of the fact, looking at these stats, that Dylan Brooks leads the Suns in fouls in preseason.
I was going to ask you about that.
I don't mind. He fouled out in in the second Brooklyn game. I think he fouled out in 22 minutes. Okay, that's fine. Set the tone. I don't care.
Yeah, I think it was clear that was the intention with how he was playing. Be ultra aggressive defensively, play as hard as you can, and try to get the other guys to do that as well. And I think at times he was capable of inspiring other guys to play a little bit harder. Diving on the floor, we talked about it in game 1, I think was symbolic of what the Suns are trying to do in the coming season. So that's a good place to start. I'm gonna say, let's talk. I know he's not going to be super super important for the Suns, or maybe he will be, but I want to talk about Nick Richards too.
Yeah, that was that was my other option.
I know it's funny to start this game talking about
Jared
Butler, Jordan Goodwin, Nick Richards, but
I would just package this under you talk about Nick Richards and then I'll bring Oso into it, because I would package this into the Suns have kind of low key, and we haven't seen Mark Williams yet, but if Mark Williams is what we think he's going to be,
a starting center basically, if he plays at a starting center level,
reasonable starting center, then low key they have a hell of a center rotation.
Yeah.
And so talk about what you saw out of Nick Richards in these 3 games.
Well,
because he only played 3.
like part of me wonders if Nick Richards, the way we cast him as a role man last year was wrong, and that he needs to play in the dunker spot to actually thrive and just be down low and open up opportunities to get the ball down low when guys are driving in the dunker spot instead of just constantly rim running over and over again, which, by the way, he still can do occasionally.
In transition, especially. He was running the floor. And keep in mind, Nick Richards in these games, he's playing shorter bursts of like 12 minutes in these games. Like 12 minutes total. Maybe shorter bursts of 6 minutes at a time or something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
He was running the floor really hard in transition. And did not go without noticing that.
The thing I think that impressed me is just his ability to catch the ball and go up off 2 feet and dunk at the rim without, this huge load up time. And what I mean by that is like he's able to sort of battle a little bit for position when guys like Devin Booker or Colin Gillespie are driving, and then create that open lane for the pass at the rim, even if there's a defender on him. And if he caught it under the rim, he was dunking it. Like he was just going to go up and slam it. He had intention on those catches. And, like feeding him the ball on the move while he's running towards the rim and hoping he gets up at the rim and dunks on guys, that still will work occasionally. But what I saw was a guy who was consistently giving a ton of effort to create the pathways to get him the ball at the rim. And when he caught it, he was making the most with it when he caught it at the rim. The other side of that, I thought his defense was pretty solid. Like, I think he's playing pretty solid defense. They're switching a lot with Oso Ighodaro. They're even allowing Kaman Malawach to occasionally switch, although he's mostly in a drop as well. Nick Richards drop like 100% of the time. He's never going to chase guys around the perimeter. But if he's in that drop, I thought he did pretty well in preseason. Preseason is obviously tough, and maybe I should have started the podcast by saying this. It's obviously tough to fully understand how these bench players are going to play because a lot of guys just don't play every game in preseason. So they're playing against guys who may not actually be in the NBA. But overall, Nick Richards last year miscast as a starting center, truthfully. Coming off the bench this year, arguably could have started every single one of these games. Oso Ighodaro started. This is a guy in his second year who was picked in the second round. Nick Richards looked like a solid backup center in preseason. And if he could be that this year, that's going to be a boost for the Suns.
I would go a step further and say Nick Richards, I don't expect him to play like he did in preseason here because the way he played in preseason is not just a solid backup center. He looked like one of the best backup centers in the NBA. He was a plus 33 in 39 total minutes. In 39 total minutes in preseason. And take it for what it is. It's 39 minutes. But he shot 11 for 15. He had 29 points, 12 rebounds, 3 blocks. I thought his timing at the rim way better than anything we saw out of him last year. Truthfully, I feel like we didn't really get any rim protection out of Nick Richards at all. In the little bit he played for the Suns post All-Star break last year, it just felt like constantly mistiming his swats. And then he comes out in preseason, looks way better. Mm-hmm. His energy was good, running the floor really hard, keeping his hands up high and ready. He was awesome. He really was. And I don't know what you do exactly if you're Jordan Knott and the goal is to come out of the gate and win games. Because you also have Oso. And so let's talk about Oso. I thought Oso had a good preseason too. Not a perfect one, but a good one. What did you think?
I agree. I think people tend to focus on offense with Oso Ighodaro. And I think that's fair because some of the more impressive things he does are on offense. He'll make a really good pass or he can dribble the ball down the floor really quickly and force more of a fast offense, which is impressive for a center to do both of those things. I just thought he was really solid defensively. They're asking him to do a lot defensively, more than they ask any other center on the Suns to do because, the other guys can't really play a switch everything, extremely switch heavy defensive scheme. but he is doing that, and I just thought he held up against a lot of really good players defensively, and having a guy who is versatile defensively in that way is actually really important. Now, it is the same conversation with him. Like, he can't space the floor, so he has to drive, right? We need to see him drive more. He did. He drove more. When he drives,
that's going to be my big point.
When he drives and he gets fouled, he's got to make his free throws.
Yep.
He didn't do that, so we still need him to do that. But if he's consistently a rim pressure guy, someone who puts pressure on the rim from the position that he is playing in, which he is attempting to do now, and can switch everything and be a solid switch everything defender on the other end, that's a pretty valuable piece. And you know, like you said, Jordan Ott's going to have a lot of decisions to make with who he plays off the bench on a game-to-game basis. You know, like you said, especially if he's trying to win.
Yeah, I do want to talk about Oso's offense because I think it's absolutely true that, you know, the free throw shooting is despicable.
Yeah.
And there's no jump shot. And I know, like, you know, it's reasonable to be frustrated at those things. But I think we also talked about at various points last year, the biggest place where Oso could start just as a first step in his offensive development was attacking the rim with confidence when you catch in the short roll. And not just focus on moving the ball side to side, which we know he's very good at. He can catch in the short roll, move the ball side to side. I know he's good at that. Or he can break, you know, if it's a 2-on-1 and there's a guy sitting underneath the rim in the dunker spot and he catches in the middle of the floor, I know he can make that pass. By the way, if we're talking about Kaman Malawach, he made that pass a couple of times in preseason too. Was able to
really nice one today. Yeah,
demonstrate some bounce passes, right? So there's some other stuff in Malawach's game too as a passer that's pretty interesting. But we know Oso can do that. He did it all last season. Needs to look at the rim and try and score himself. And although it wasn't perfect, I think we saw a lot of progress in preseason. For reference, in the regular season last year, Oso averaged 6.4 field goal attempts per 36. That is just like, you're not really giving us anything on offense. You're not looking to create your own offense at all. We feel like we don't have to guard you. That number went up to 9.5 per 36 through these 3 preseason games. It's a small sample size, and also that still puts him near the bottom of this roster in terms of offensive aggression. But my main point being, it's more aggression. And if you go back and watch the tape, it was clear that he was catching, finishing with force, finishing through contact, getting to the free throw line. Yes, he needs to make his free throws. But clearly, he's put on a little bit of weight, and clearly he has a little bit of more confidence when he plays on offense. So I thought it was a good preseason for Oso. What does Jordan not do? I have no idea. Because as far as I can tell, he's got... I'll put it this way. On our over-under pod with Max a week ago, or whenever that was, I think I took the over on Malawach games played, and I don't remember exactly where you set that. I want to say you set that at like 60?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I don't know about that anymore.
Yeah, I don't know either. Yeah,
I think Malawach could be really, really good, especially after a game like tonight, but also I think Ott is going to make him earn it. And if the combination of Nick Richards as that drop defender and sitting in the dunker spot, offensive player, and then Oso as the more skilled option, if those two guys play as well as they played in preseason, it's going to be kind of hard for Malawach to earn those minutes. I mean, nothing's going to be guaranteed for him because really both of those guys I thought were quite good.
Yeah, I agree. I think Oso Ighodaro, too, in some respects, is playing for his NBA life a little bit because he has to prove that you can carve out a role for what he does in order for him to continue to get chances in the NBA. Now, it's only his second year, but he's also a second-round pick. Like, his contract is not guaranteed for long, and he is very smart. But if he can get, if the only thing he's bringing you offensively is the occasional good pass and then 50% at the free throw line because he gets fouled every time he goes under it, then I don't know. That's difficult. He has to show a little bit more. If that's defensively, if he becomes one of the best defenders in the team, truthfully, I think that's kind of where his ceiling could potentially be. That's pretty valuable. Like that, you add a lot to the team in that way. But he also has to find a role offensively, and maybe it is occasionally at power forward, especially if someone like Malawach can make threes. But for now, he's playing for his NBA life a little bit. Probably has a season and then maybe next season to prove that he has a role in the NBA before he's forced out of it and has to find a way back in some other way. So for him, this is going to be a really important season, and I think he probably knows it, and he's going to be playing hard. The good news is, very smart player, has a bunch of interesting skills as an NBA player, and then will probably, regardless of the center rotation here, they did have a starting center who hasn't played a minute. He will probably have some opportunity to prove himself regardless of how the season goes for each of these other guys. Let's talk about the white boys.
Which one?
We got Grayson Allen and Colin Gillespie.
Okay.
I think both of them were pretty good.
Yeah.
Let's start with let's start with Colin Gillespie first, actually. I really was impressed with Colin Gillespie, particularly, I think it was the second game in China. Now I'm getting those two games a little mixed in my head here. I just thought that there were times where he would check in and his presence was like immediately felt, whether it would be his effort on defense and his ability to sneak in and get some rebounds that he shouldn't be getting.
Hey, who led the Suns in offensive rebounds in preseason?
Yeah, I'm guessing he had 6 in one game, didn't he?
I'm
guessing it was him.
Colin Gillespie led the Suns in offensive rebounds.
That's crazy. It's all, you want to call it effort. It is effort, but like he's just kind of sneaky with his offensive rebounds. He just really runs up and gets to the spot that he thinks the ball's going to bounce and gets to it before other guys. He's not like out jumping guys for rebounds. He's just being a little sneaky with it.
He's sneaking behind him. He's gentrified Alvarado. I feel like.
Exactly. And look, he also is just doing things off the dribble a little bit more in creating for other guys. That has been really impressive. We talked about Nick Richards playing well. I think that he and Colin Gillespie have developed a little bit of chemistry with that as well, where he is attempting to find Nick Richards a little bit more, and they have some level of chemistry going into the preseason. Of course, hopefully going into the season. No Jalen Green. We talked about it. Jalen Green will be reevaluated in 10 days. Colin Gillespie is going to get some opportunity to start this season. And we anticipated that he was going to get some opportunity to start this season because he's the only natural point guard on the roster. But the good news is he looks like in preseason so far that he's earned it. Like he doesn't look like a guy who's going to be given opportunity just because that's what the roster dictates.
No.
He's played well enough that he looks like he deserves the opportunity that he's going to get to start the season. What have you thought of Colin so far?
Yeah, he looks well conditioned, like he's looking for quick kick aheads, and I think pace and space is just duh, because it's important to kind of everyone. But I do think those are important principles for Jordan Ott, and I think you can see them when you see the types of shots that they're encouraging Colin Gillespie and Grayson Allen too, by the way, to take. I get the vibe. I don't have the 3-point percentage in front of me, but I don't know if the Suns shot above 35% in any of these games from deep. Did they, off the top of your head?
I don't know. I don't think
I sort of get...
this game they did, 37.
Okay,
no,
in one game they did.
38% in this game. Funny enough.
In one game they did. But I sort of get the vibe that Jordan Ott doesn't really care if they shoot 32% from deep this year, and if he lets Colin Gillespie and Grayson Allen and Dylan Brooks and Jalen Green, when he plays, you bet that Jalen Green's going to be involved in this, that these guys are going to be taking 28-foot pull-up threes if it means that everyone around them is going to be benefiting from the additional spacing, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Is just so and that they know that because of their extra size this year, they're going to be able to eke out a few extra offensive rebounds in a way that previously they couldn't.
We watched Ty Jerome last year. I know we keep making that comparison.
Yeah.
But he had the green light to shoot off dribble threes, particularly in transition, if guys were backing up on him around screens. He just shot him every time.
Yeah,
he
and
made
so,
them. He did played well. Don't get me wrong. He made a lot of them, but he had that green light.
Yeah, Gillespie shot 5 of 15 from deep in preseason. A 15 3-point attempt sample size means nothing, but just watching the film, you will see that a lot of those attempts were kind of deep. I don't know if they were the deepest of his career, but it sort of felt like deeper than I was used to seeing from him. And so I just think they're going to continue to pester him and be on his case about being uber aggressive because they know that they need extra offensive juice to come from somewhere outside of just Devin Booker and of course, Jalen Green. And a lot of that's going to have to come from Colin Gillespie. There's a lot resting on his shoulders with this team.
When he talked at training camp, one of the first things he mentioned is Jordan not talking to him about doing more off the dribble. So he's telling us, right? He's telling us everything we need to know there. And it was clear. You're talking about deep threes, too. They were deep threes, but the other thing is if they're going under at the top of the key, he was launching. If he has space, he's going to launch. And, that's the type of thing that if it goes well to start the season, he's going to do it the whole season. If it goes really poorly, I don't know how the Suns are going to react to that, how he's going to react to that, how Jordan Ott's going to react to that remains to be seen. Kind of feels like one of those things that if you really want him to get good at it, you have to give him half the season or so to really give an honest effort to try to shoot those shots. They're different. They're not something that he was allowed to do in the NBA previously. So we'll see, but maybe he's good at it right away. We'll see. Like you said, 15 shots is not quite a sample size to really figure out what he's going to look like coming into the season. Yeah. But I agree with you. I think there's 10, just an element of
10, 15 games in where we might not know, right? Like when you're talking about how guys shoot from deep, especially, there are certain guys on this roster. We know what Dillon Brooks is as a shooter. We know what Grayson Allen certainly is as a shooter, but certain of these guys, Colin Gillespie, Rasheer Fleming, Kaman Malawach, and Mark Williams, maybe to an extent, like they're going to need a lot more time to sort of settle into some type of groove and are given space to miss some shots. Yeah.
I think he's going to have a really interesting season. And another guy who will is Grayson Allen. Grayson Allen, I think, deserves a lot of credit for his malleability, his flexibility with his role on the Suns. This is his third season on the Suns, and I feel like he's being asked to do something different this year again. And it could just be, I don't know. It could just be because Jalen Green's out. But like the way they described him, he understood what was expected of him in his body in July. That's when he said he started working on it. That's how long it took, right, to get ready for the season, to get in what they call Devin Booker shape as far as his body and his conditioning. But in these preseason games, he was the number 2 ball handler in the starting lineup, and it appears, if we have any indication of what we expect them to do based on preseason, it appears that's what he's going to be to start the season as well, because Jalen Green is not playing, at the very least in that first game. Devin Booker, obviously the main guy. Closest we've seen when he's on the floor, it's the closest we've seen to some sort of quote-unquote heliocentric, like main offensive engine thing for him.
For Book?
Yeah.
Yes, I don't know if I agree with that. I guess I could get behind that. I want to be very clear because I do think some people don't watch preseason. A lot of people do watch preseason who listen to us, but I think some people are probably using this episode as they're catching up. Maybe they didn't get a chance to watch all the preseason games. If you didn't get a chance to watch the preseason games, you might be surprised when you realize that we're talking about Booker in this heliocentric sense, and yet who's bringing the ball up the floor? It's very rarely Devin Booker.
Yes.
And it's very rarely going to be Devin Booker this season.
And it shouldn't be. I mean, honestly, if you can get him the ball in the half court without him having to be the guy that's fighting the defense up and down the court.
It's less energy and more specifically, more energy that he can then put into defensive effort instead in order to have a holistic approach to his game where, there's an impact on both ends. But who does that responsibility now fall on to bring the ball up the court? I mean, a lot of it's going to be Jalen Green when Jalen Green can play. We've seen some of Oso Akitaro doing it, and occasionally he is going to. But also, in this case, Grayson Allen. Yet another thing that he's never really been asked to do, I don't feel like. And his ball handling is going to be tested. Oso's ball handling is going to be tested. Defenses, now that they realize, I mean, it will take them very little time to understand that this is what the Suns are doing. But I imagine they are going to get more and more aggressive with these guys who are not used to this role of initiating the sets and, having to prevent 8-second violations from happening in the backcourt and all this other stuff. And we're going to have to see what they're made of in sort of pressurized ball handling situations. But I do think Grayson was good as a playmaker in preseason. I don't think he was anything special, but he was good.
I think he's still going to be a little turnover prone when he's making passes on the move. It's just who he's been throughout his time at the Suns. You and I have had conversations about it year over year. He had that 11 assist game, never forget, or maybe it was more than 11. He had a lot of assists in one game. And it's just one of those things that's going to come and go for him. He can make smart reads. But when he's on the move, moving a little too fast, that's when he struggles a little bit more. Although he can occasionally make some really nice reads. He had some nice lobs in preseason. He had some nice kickouts in preseason. It's just going to be a little bit more up and down for him. By the way, there was a stretch, I believe it was the Frank Vogel year, where the Suns were so injured that he had to play backup point guard. Do you remember that at all?
So vaguely.
It's probably like 4 or 5 games where Grayson Allen was the backup point guard, and he was okay. Like, he's just okay at that. But I do think the type of offense, the way that the Suns are going to play, even when Jalen Green is healthy, it really feels like it's going to be something that is going to benefit the style of basketball that Grayson Allen plays. Last year, he started off really poorly. He started to shoot better towards the end of the season. The Suns would really benefit from him coming out and starting the season really, really good, really hot from 3 in particular, because it's just, like I said, the way they play will suit him. So if he can start well, that'll help them all.
The additional ball movement is going to help Grayson a lot. Not in like he has to be coming off in a Klay Thompson, Seth Curry kind of way. Like, I don't think that's really Grayson's game. He's more of a standstill shooter. But having other guys who are rotating around him and constantly emptying the corners and finding cutters and being able to do a ton of guard-to-guard screens, they love guard-to-guard screens in preseason. That's the other thing.
They really do,
for Devin Booker. This might be a hyperbolic statement, but it often felt to me like, and I didn't count, like there were as many guard-to-guard screens for Devin Booker as just a normal big coming up and setting a screen for Book.
Book was setting on-ball screens, even for Oso Ighodaro.
But so Grayson's going to be doing that. He's going to be setting those screens. Sometimes he's going to be making contact, but sometimes he's going to be slipping or ghosting. Sometimes he's going to be in the corner and then, emptying out to the other side. And there's going to be a lot more movement for Grayson. And it's going to be less standstill, just waiting for something to happen. I do think he's just going to get more shots off as a result of it. And also they do need him to do that because let's be honest about, what the talent is on paper on this team compared to the talent on paper of last year's team. But also I just think that, it's probably going to result in cleaner looks for him.
Yeah. He's going to play a very important role to start this season. It's going to be interesting to see. I mean, or maybe they don't. Maybe they just start Colin Gillespie. Like, maybe they don't even start him and they keep him coming off the bench because that will be what his role will be when Jalen Green is healthy. But I think the most likely starting lineup, assuming Jalen Green's out, is what they started with. Or maybe it's not Oso Ighodaro. Maybe Mark Williams is healthy, right? And so it's Devin Booker, Grayson Allen, Dillon Brooks, Ryan Dunn, Mark Williams to start the season. That's probably what we're going to see.
They could do Royce too somewhere in there.
Slip him in for Dunn, right?
They could slip him in for Grayson. I don't know. They could.
Yeah, I think it's unlikely, but yeah, they could. But I do think that Dunn did not have a great preseason, in my opinion. Occasionally he did things that looked good. I think his offense still looks as shaky as it did last season, and the defense, I'm still yet to really lock in to seeing what we expect from Ryan Dunn defensively and it is sort of unfair to him, the sky high expectations for him defensively. I have not personally seen him be like a top tier defender for the Suns so far on a consistent basis. He shows flashes, and he's young, so like maybe that's all you're going to get for a while from him. But I have yet to I'll be honest, I don't think that starting job is secure for him now, and I didn't think it was before preseason. I just haven't seen enough from him to say like he's completely earned that spot.
Sure.
He is just so athletic. And so like having a guy who's that athletic in the starting lineup as someone who his role needs to be defensive, that might be enough to keep him in there, right? Because you put Royce O'Neal in there, and now your starting lineup has Grayson Allen, Royce O'Neal, and Ryan Dunn. Dylan Brooks. Like those are not. That's not a very athletic, starting five. You
that's
a
James.
Need a little bit more
that's a James Jones starting five.
Yeah. So, like maybe you just keep him in there for that. But like I really was hoping we'd see more from him. And that's unfair. It's 4 games. And really it's 3 games because he didn't play the 4th game.
3 games, yeah.
I'm really hoping we see more from him early on in this season from Ryan Dunn. Or he may lose that starting spot and then he comes off the bench. And maybe that's a better fit for him this season.
Yeah, I hope so too. He also, he took like 5 threes in 3 games. And, I think if his offensive game popped a little bit more, then you'd be more willing to
Absolutely.
Yeah, to look past whatever's going on defensively. And it's not that Ryan is bad defensively. He's not. It's just more that he shines in a freelance kind of way defensively. Like, oh my God, wow, look at what this guy is capable of doing. Look at him pin the ball to the backboard there and get a chase down block or whatever. But when he needs to be consistently on the ball as like some sort of lockdown point of attack defender or whatever, he's fine, but he's maybe not what we were sold on, at least not at this stage of his career. And so he's still working through that. I mean, if you're going to say that like Rasheer Fleming or someone else, like I don't know if there's a better candidate on the roster now.
No, and that's the reality of this. You keep him in the starting lineup right now. To me.
Yeah.
You keep him in there, you let him continue to work through it a little bit, and you give him like a fair shot to keep that role. Like I think Rasheer Fleming, and we'll talk about him too, was really impressive in this preseason. I think he did a really good job, and we'll talk about why and what that means. But I do think Ryan Dunn had flashes last year that were enough to keep him in the starting lineup for now. Plus, who else is there? Just as you said. Like you can't do Oso Ighodaro, you can't shoot. Rasheer Fleming is a rookie. He's not ready. Kaman Malawach, we haven't even seen him play a minute at power forward this season. No. Nigel Hayes-Davis,
really
pretty bad. Pretty bad, man.
I
think he will be fine. Don't get me wrong, but he didn't show enough in preseason that you're going to put him in the starting lineup.
I would say and this is all we need to say on it because no reason to harp on it this early, small sample size and all that, but the one guy who I actually think had an actively bad preseason was probably Nigel Hayes-Davis. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he just, I don't know.
It's for him.
Couldn't buy a
I
bucket.
think
he tried.
It's exactly what it is. And for him, like, this is why I'm not really worried about it yet. It's just that the shots that he takes that he did really well with in EuroLeague, based on his highlights, he was not hitting those shots. So, like, it could just be there's a little rust he has to knock off, and then once he starts hitting those shots, he's going to look a lot better. The one thing I'll say with him is we still saw some movement threes. Even in this game where he was 4 for 12, he was 2 for 3 from 3. Both of those threes were off movement. And for his height, for his size, that's pretty impressive. The reason you don't put him in the starting lineup right away is defensively, Ryan Dunn's still better than him from what we can see. I think Nigel Hayes-Davis is actually bigger, a little bit stronger than I thought that he would look in the position that he was asked to play. But he's not
Grabbed some offensive rebounds, hit the
pretty
floor.
Pretty good rebounder, actually.
A couple of times, so like he's a hustle candidate too.
It's possible he will be the guy that if anyone takes it, it's like I wouldn't rule him out, I guess, is what I would say. But he needs to be great defensively because Devin Booker and Jalen Green aren't. So you need someone to be great defensively. That's why Ryan Dunn keeps it. Right, unless Royce O'Neal comes in and he looks awesome to start the season, maybe he finds a way in there. But Ryan Dunn keeps it for now. I just really hope he plays really well to start the season, because I just enjoy having hope in what he does and really kind of believing in what he can be. And, I think you just have to start seeing something with him to continue to have that hope. Rasheer Fleming, though.
That's where I was going to go. What did you see tonight specifically? Because Rasheer, he played a few minutes in the other games. Tonight was far and away the best one, though.
He looks like a good defender, and like the offense is one of those things where, like, in preseason last year, Ryan Dunn made every 3-pointer. In fact, the first 10 games of the season, he made half his 3-pointers or whatever, and we're like, okay, Ryan Dunn's the best player on the Suns. Like, we had a lot of faith in him. I think Rasheer Fleming showed so much more offensively in college that it makes it easy to believe in some of that translating to the NBA. Even if it's just the 3-point shot, that's still really valuable for him. Outside of that, though, the way he moves defensively, particularly, the way he moves for how big he is, 6'9", 240, that's what he's listed at right now. There's just not a lot of guys who can do that, at his age right away in the NBA. And if he can do that in the regular season, if he can look like a guy who can match up defensively against a lot of these guys and dodge those screens and move around those screens at his size, that's going to be really valuable. On the other side of that, his 3 looks good. Like, now, okay, it doesn't look good. It's not the prettiest 3, but it's going in. He's 3 for 7 tonight, and he's not scared to shoot it. Similarly,
whose 3 doesn't look good?
Dunn.
Dylan Brooks's release looks terrible, and
it's very weird.
He makes it, so whatever.
I don't care how it looks. We watch Sean Marion. We don't care.
Dylan Brooks literally does not guide the ball with his off hand. He shoots with one hand. It is
like his brain crazy. Controls his hands separately. Yeah, it's very bizarre. Yeah.
But Rasheer Fleming, I believe in his 3-point shooting, first of all. I think what's interesting about Rasheer, and I think I've talked about it before, but you don't see prospects come in that often who are better from the top of the key and more confident, like from the slot or the top of the key, than they are from the corners. That's supposed to be a harder shot. The corner is supposed to be the easiest shot. And a lot of times when you have guys where it's like, let's build their 3-point shot from the ground up, you start by placing them in the corner and you try and get them to, can they be a 35% shooter in the corner first? Then you move them up to the slot. Rasheer Fleming, he can do it all. He's shot 3s from everywhere. But it is clear he has this higher level of confidence if he's just, running a quick pick and pop, and then he's going to catch it at the slot and fire away immediately. No hesitation whatsoever. If you go back and look at his shot chart in college, that's where he's shooting like 40+% from, is those above the break 3s. So that's pretty exciting because that's just more difficult. And then you compare him with guys who are good corner 3-point shooters as well, to use as bailout options. So yeah, he's got that in his offensive bag. He can grab offensive rebounds. The hustle's there. Defensively, he just moves with purpose. And there's a lot to be said for a guy at that size who moves with purpose. And the way that they can swallow up a defender's or an opposing offensive player's airspace like so quickly, and play in different schemes, right? How much of it is going to translate, or like how much is he even going to play coming out of the gate? I'm not in a position to say. But the defensive instincts have been very good for Rasheer so far, particularly tonight against LA where he played over 30 minutes. He looked really good.
Look, if his defense is good right away and he's 6'9", 240, maybe he is in the starting lineup by the end of the year. Like, there's just, as good as Ryan Dunn is, you can't teach 6'9", 240. That's just how big you are. You can't grow, I don't know, go to Turkey and get that leg extension surgery or whatever. But it's just a big guy who can move that quickly. And if something in there translates right away defensively, it's hard to, it's just it feels great that the Suns picked a guy like that in the second round. where you can sort of attach some level of expectations to him in that you can kind of see it. He just looks like an NBA player. He's big. He should have been picked earlier, I think, and the Suns kind of lucked out with him falling to the second round.
Regarding the him versus Ryan conversation, he is bigger, but the ancillary offensive skills that maybe, ironically enough, even Ryan Dunn can provide that we're not sure if Rasheer can, like being a pick and roll finisher in certain contexts. The more that Rasheer is able to show stuff like that, the more convinced I would be. It's just he needs to be able to provide something more than just standstill 3-point shooting.
No, I agree.
Of course,
with that too.
With Ryan, we don't even know if he can do the standstill 3-point shooting, but we also know that he can move around, again, with purpose, off the ball, offensively, in a way that I think is kind of interesting. He can play it at the dunker spot.
Cutting.
He can He can fill lanes in transition.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, Rasheer, I think Odd's going to take the same approach with all of these guys. Kobe Brea played a little bit in this game, by the way. I love Kobe Brea. His game's super smooth.
Rough game.
He just didn't make his threes. One of the mid-range shots he made, though, I mean, it was basically might have been Devin Booker.
Both of them.
He's not going to play a lot, at least unless something crazy happens. But for Malawach and Fleming, I don't know. I would assume that these guys start out in like 8 to 10 minute per game roles, right? Like, there's no way they're coming out of the gate
good question.
playing more than that in the opening week of the season. I would be shocked.
Anyone else or anything else that you notice you want to talk about? Look, I know we have time. Our next podcast on this feed will be our season preview. That's how close we are to real NBA basketball. But anything else you notice that you want to talk about?
We talked about everyone. I mean,
I think so.
Book had a good preseason.
We did talk about Booker like throughout this whole conversation, but he looked really good in preseason, and I think he's going to be awesome this year. But we know Devin Booker. Like, we just know who he is and what we.
I know,
expect
it's just
of him.
the team goes as Book goes, so it's a little funny to not spend a segment talking about him, but we'll get there in our season preview.
Yeah, and with Devin Booker, I do feel like, and we talked about this after preseason game 1, I do feel like the Suns said, here's the offense we want to play, Jordan Ott. And then he said, how do we tailor that to the skills of Devin Booker? And I really think they put together a system that is really going to benefit the things that he's good at. And I think there's a chance he has kind of a monster season as long as he can stay healthy. So, and we talked about that previously. I feel the same after the 2 China games. I do wish he just had one crazy Devin Booker game in China for those fans. The people that came out to those games to see him, where I think he was good in both of them. He in the second game, he started out 3 for 4 from 3 and had a monster first quarter. And I was like, okay, here we go. Give him 30 points in 3 quarters and then sit down, which he didn't do. But I'm hoping stuff like that happens to start this season. It's going to be fascinating to see how the Suns deal with what's expected of him throughout the season as a team, though, because there's going to be a lot of defense focused on him. And yeah, that's all we got. Sam, thanks for staying up late even though you don't feel well. I appreciate that. We're recording this after the last preseason game, like I said to start.
It is super late, man. We will talk to you guys again in a few days. Mike,
have
you updated your expectations for the season at all based on a 3-1 preseason? Personally, I tweeted out 44-38 just before we started recording this.
Yeah. I don't know. I no. I need to see Jalen Green and Mark Williams.
I get that. Yeah.
It's just really tough to, I do think they're going to be higher effort. And I honestly think that if they play really hard and look like a team that has some sort of culture and intention with how they play, even then, I think that Matt Ishbia and Brian Gregory will deserve some credit for that. If that's something that they intended to do, they set out to do it, if they really succeed in that goal, they deserve credit for that. But as far as how good they can be, there's 2 really important players that we haven't seen play yet. And I really want to see them play before I set any expectations. So I'm still thinking 35 wins. Like, that's what I said in our over-under episode. I'm still thinking around there.
35
but if those guys
wins.
look good, and if they look good with both of those guys on the floor, I'm going to up that.
35 wins by January 1st. Lock it in.
All right. Patreon episode midweek. Join us, patreon.com/thetimeline. Good time to do it. Next week, season preview. Thanks, everyone, for listening. Back soon.